my name's Revenge, and welcome to Rev's Real Talk, a video series where I give my unfiltered opinion about, well, basically anything. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about something that I briefly covered in a video about 2 years ago. Why I hate MGTOW. If you want the too long didn't read version because you value your time, it's basically because they're feminists with extra steps. If you want a more detailed explanation, sit on down, grab some hot chocolate, and let's get into it. For those of you who don't know what MGTOW is, it basically stands for men going their own way. Now on the surface level, this doesn't seem so bad. Men going their own way, becoming their own man, not getting married or having kids, yada yada yada. There's nothing inherently wrong about not wanting to start a family and just living your life. But if that was simply all it was, I wouldn't be making this video, would I? Over the years, MGTOW has basically devolved into a dogmatic anti-woman incel cult. Basically a Rule 63 version of feminism. But don't take my word for it. Take a look at the comments of my first Why I Hate MGTOW video and you'll see the unadulterated autism that these incels perpetuate. What they usually tend to ignore is that men and women can be shitters. It's called being a fucking human being. They also tend to forget that women can also get the raw end of the stick when it comes to divorce.
Good evening. She says she was beaten by her husband for almost 20 years. He went to jail after a guilty plea, but now she may be responsible for paying the man who abused her spousal support. We begin with the story of a woman who fled physical abuse only to say the courts may now end up imposing financial abuse.
My marriage was a violent one. It was full of love and hate in equal measures.
We are hiding her identity to protect her and her two daughters. Her story of an abusive marriage is a familiar one. Regular beatings and then apologies and then beatings again.
I was kicked in the face. I was punched in the face. I used to hide under the comforter and he'd beat my head.
The violent cycle went on for 18 years until, she says, he went too far. What made you finally leave?
He beat my daughter. He beat his child. The day he beat his child, there was no way.
She called police and her husband was charged. This document shows he pled guilty to 2 counts of assault and was sentenced to 1 day in jail plus 8 already served. But now, to make matters worse, as she is struggling to rebuild her life, he's demanding spousal support, $696 a month.
Should the ex-wife of a man who won $273 million in the lottery get some of the jackpot? After all, during their 15-year marriage, she supported him because he didn't have a steady job. Well, now the lottery winner's ex is speaking out in an exclusive interview with our Les Trent.
She's the just-divorced wife whose ex-husband won $273 million in the lottery. Mike Mursky never had a steady job in their 15-year marriage.
We had a dog. He took care of the dog.
And when they divorced 5 months ago, she was ordered to pay him alimony.
After paying my mortgage, my alimony, I'm left with $208 per week.
Since the divorce in 2003, I have given him close to $100,000, including the $57,000 from my home equity.
Story after story.
She was making over $200 a week more than me, and I was going to work every day.
When a marriage in Massachusetts ends, sometimes a lifetime financial burden begins.
I can't even afford a birthday party for them. I cannot afford to let them attend a birthday party.
At a recent State House hearing, dozens went public. Men and women forced into bankruptcy, even jail, because of financially crippling alimony obligations. Alimony is separate from child support. In most states, it's a temporary arrangement ordered to help a lower-earning spouse get back on their feet after a divorce. In Massachusetts, it works differently. One ex may be required to keep the other in the lifestyle they were accustomed to during the marriage forever, regardless of who ended it. Judges are tied by state divorce laws originally drafted in the 18th century. Right now, probate court judges don't have a lot of options when it comes to duration of alimony. With the way the law is written, if they do try to set a time limit, Often their decisions can be overturned on appeal.
But bootlicking MGTOWs won't tell you that because it's inconvenient for the narrative that men are exclusively the victims when it comes to alimony in divorce court. Ultimately, divorce court and alimony boils down to three key factors. Which one is the higher earner? How does the state you live in handle divorce? And finally, did you or your spouse sign a prenup or a postnup? There are many other factors to consider, but these three are some of the most, if not the most important to factor in. And as they say in G.I. Joe, a man's cartoon, knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe! It's honestly saddening to see how many men just jump into divorce court not knowing their rights. I've heard tons of success stories from men in divorce courts who simply won by knowing what their rights were and what their spouse was truly entitled to. And there are tons of resources online that educate men on their rights and their entitlements when it comes to divorce. But MGTOWs won't tell you that because it's inconvenient for the self-victimizing and defeatist attitude that MGTOW has towards relationships and divorce. Because it would rather teach you to be dogmatically afraid of the opposite sex rather than truly educate you on your rights and entitlements. It would rather dogmatically attack anyone who opposes their view, calling them simps or bootlickers. MGTOW, or incel culture in general, basically borders on being a fucking religion. Much like feminism. In short, I hate MGTOW for the same reasons that I hate feminism. It's basically just sexism disguised as activism. Treating the opposite sex as a blind, hateful monster that solely exists to hurt the other sex. And saying anything otherwise is regarded as heresy. Don't get me wrong, divorce court is still rather fucked, but it's not nearly as fucked as MGTOW would lead you to believe. It ultimately boils down to how you've prepared, how well you know your rights as a person, and what state you're living in. But that about wraps up this video. If you liked it, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to join the Discord server so you never miss a video because it gives out more reliable notifications than YouTube's own subscribe button. This is Revenge, and I hope to hear from you soon.